Hello. Hi. Welcome to today's episode. I am so excited that you're here. I wanted to invite you to come listen to this conversation. It is a good one. It's the title of it is Selling Excellence, and Rachel really has a background in just that, in helping people create a customer experience that is long lasting and is is rich for both the customer and for you if you're the salesperson. But also, I just wanted to invite you into this conversation as a human and listen to the advice and the tips that she has on conversations. It's really, whether we realize it or not, as we go through life, we are selling. We're selling ourselves and helping people see who we are, get to know us, but also like serving others and offering them advice, experience, relationship, all the things. And so I just wanted to invite you to like think of this episode not like from a perspective of a salesperson, but really like as you're having conversations in life, are you listening? Are you inviting others into the conversation? Are you having open-ended questions? Are you providing open-ended questions? And are you waiting for the answers? And really, really, truly engaging in the conversations that you're in with, whether it be loved ones or somebody, a stranger at the grocery store or whatnot. And I really took so much out of this conversation with Rachel because she was really helping me just open my eyes to the fact that there are so many times where I just kind of barrel through the moment, and I myself am not stopping and truly asking those open-ended questions and getting to know people. I am a doer and a goer, and I think so many of us are. And so I just, really, really got so much out of this. So I invite you with that to listen in, put yourself in the shoes of the person, quote unquote, selling, and really listen to the advice being given. Also, if you are somebody who has a business, or you're somebody who is in retail, or has customers in their work experience, in their work life, this is such a good episode. So I hope that you listen to it from that perspective as well. And with that, I give you today's episode with Rachel Morgan. Hello and welcome to Spinning Plates Podcast. I am your host, Selena Johnson, and I am so glad you're here. God has a perfect plan for you, a design specific that is only for you, and I assure you that it does not include living tired and discontent. I know it's for you to live fully into who you're meant to be. So let's spin the plates together with joy and purpose. Thanks for hanging out with me. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. All right, you guys, I have a really fun guest on today. I'm very excited to introduce you to my friend, Rachel Morgan, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. So Rachel and I have connected through, we've got networking, right? So through our BLOS community, we've found each other, and then we started following each other, and then fell a little bit in love with each other. And then we've been able to chat. And I told her when we were talking, I was like, we need to have you come on the podcast because I think you're going to have a lot of value for a lot of people. And I'm really excited about it. We're going to talk about conversations, and we're going to talk about getting to know people and building trust and all that good stuff. But before we do, we're going to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at in life, and what you're up to.
Yes. So I am a sales coach, and I focus primarily on luxury retail. And what I love to do is go in and help teams and you really improve your sales performance and then also elevate your customer experience. So I really come from a consultative selling approach. I believe that customer service really does impact and influence sales, and that retention is huge. So I try to infuse those types of strategies when I work with my clients. And
Yes.
so my background, I worked in retail for over 13 years, primarily in the fine jewelry industry, and was a store manager. And I just, you do everything when you're a store manager. You payroll, schedule, hiring, firing, the good and the bad things. And what I really fell in love with was training and developing people and
Mhm.
seeing firsthand just how important customer service is, and the world of difference it can make on workplace culture and customers and just having fun and enjoying sales. And so I really wanted to become a sales trainer, and I took that leap and started my own business to do just that.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh. And I know that, so we all know when we go into a store and we receive poor customer service, it makes an impact. But we also know when we go into a store and we receive good customer service, or online or on the phone or whatever, it makes a huge impact. So what are some of the things that you focus on with people that will make a good impact on the customer? So what are like the plus ones that you like to talk to people about as you're leading them through that?
Yeah, you just made such a great point. I think that we tend to focus on the extremes, the really good
Mm-hmm.
experiences and the really bad experiences. And I think more often we focus on the bad because we don't often recognize in the moment just how good something was. And so
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of things that can happen. Obviously, we like to feel seen and heard when we go into a space. We like accessibility. And I
Absolutely.
know from a sales standpoint, we often don't like to greet or acknowledge or engage because we don't want to come across as being pushy and salesy. Yet,
Yes.
sales psychology tells us that consumers actually really like that. And so it's all about your approach to that and how you go about that and your body language and the words that you use, right? Which is technically body language. It
Mm-hmm.
can really make all that difference. Like how you approach people, the angle you approach people. There's a lot that goes into it.
I love that. Can you give us like some tips? I want to talk body language. Let's talk body language. I
Yeah.
love this so much because I think what I was telling Rachel, talking to the audience now, what I was telling Rachel is that like I think that this is not just for sales. This is like interacting with human beings, right? Like
Mhm.
this is when you see someone at a grocery store or you're in the workplace or whatnot. So tell us what some like tips are for positive body language and how we can show up as our best selves in front of others. Yeah.
Yeah, so a great point. Sales to me is really a life skill because we
Mhm.
sell all day long, right? To our friends, to our family, to our employees on our team. It's not literally just a transactional experience where you're literally passing money back and forth, right?
Love
It's
that.
it's helping you become a better communicator, in my opinion. So when we talk about body language, it's oddly like not talked about enough, but body language actually makes up most of our communication.
And amazing.
It's
That's
the
so
words we
crazy.
use only make up like 7% of
Yeah.
our communication, which is wild to consider. So that means the entire other part of that is body language. So body language is like your posture, your appearance, your tone of voice, eye contact. And so, yes, appearance is really important.
Hmm.
Um, so if we're talking about, we'll start with appearance. So, really good thing is people will decide within 7 seconds if you're capable of helping them or not. And that usually
Wow.
comes from your appearance. So it does
Wow.
matter, right? Like what your clothes convey. They look at your shoes, right? Like we like to think that it doesn't matter. And the like that would be nice, right?
Yeah.
Is it didn't matter. But people do um kind of take in who you are as a person based on what you choose to wear and present yourself as. So that's really
Hmm.
important in the sales process, even when you're with your friends and family. And then um, if we're talking about like posture,
Hmm.
like if you greet someone at a 45-degree angle, it's actually more welcoming than it is
Like
if you greet them,
thinking, like
yeah,
thinking, right?
right?
Okay.
Then head on. It's less
Okay.
intimidating. 'Cause they're like it's
Interesting.
more like from the side, right? And so
Yeah.
that's a really great way to go up to someone, reapproach someone, especially if you're in like a retail space. I know
Hmm.
that this is not a life skill,
Hmm.
but here would be like another little sales psychology hack is that
I love it.
the counter acts like a barrier. And so it's best to greet people from around it because
Mm.
when you're behind the counter, you're establishing you're here to buy and I'm here to sell you. And it can be very intimidating.
Wow.
And so it's always best to come around the counter and greet
Yeah.
someone at a 45-degree angle and chat with them.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
you had just said something about appearance, and I think it's I want to pause there because I think that this is really important. It doesn't just affect the person's perception of you, but do you believe it also affects your own feelings, right? Like how you're presenting yourself. I know for me when I think you and I chatted about this a while back, but like when I go and um I'm going to do a presentation, I dress differently on that day because
Yes.
I want to feel taller and I want to feel, like I'm in my power, my power mode or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I feel strong. That's the word. I want to feel strong and
Mhm.
confident. And So do you believe that too, that it matters not just to the other party, but to yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you're wearing a shirt that you don't feel confident in. Are you going to
Yeah.
feel confident speaking to other people? So the clothes that you choose to wear also can influence how you feel and how you talk about yourself. So
Yeah.
I know right now I'm not wearing a blazer, but typically I do wear a blazer in presentations as well because it makes
Mm-hmm.
me feel more confident and, like you said, strong and
Yeah.
powerful. And there are, even if you stand up taller, right, and you
Mm-hmm.
have a more open body language, it also communicates. It's like called the power pose, right? I have a feeling you know what that is because you were kind of getting there. But
Yeah.
even just standing taller with your shoulders back can also communicate confidence. And when you can communicate confidence, right, consumers are more likely to see you as being confident. And even in a conversation with a friend, right, if you're hunched over or you're closed off, like it's not communicating that either. So you want to come across as like confident in what you're saying. You want people to trust you, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a sales process. So the way you dress, the way you appear, the way you greet them, your stance, it's all very important.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay, so we want people to trust us. So, what are ways? Let's jump into trust because this is like, I think, huge. Just like, again, like we're saying, not just in a sales environment, but in life. So what are some ways of building trust through communication? Because I think that's huge for a lot of people
Right.
to pick up on, including myself.
Right. So, okay. So we greeted the person. It's like,
Yep.
what do we say to them? How do we start the conversation? And that
Yes.
tends to be the hardest thing. Like, I even see that at networking. So, like, if you
Mhm.
network, right, how do you go up to someone and talk to them? And so there are two types of questions. There's open-ended and close-ended. So here's a good way to remember it. A close-ended question typically closes off the conversation because they stop it dead, because you typically get a response that's yes or no. And so
Mhm.
they might start with, is there, can I, do I, like, do you want to see anything else? Is there anything else you want to see? Do you have
Right.
any questions? Like those
Right.
kind of things that kind of get you yes or no.
Right.
Then you have your open ended questions, and those open the conversations. They give you a more meaningful response. And so those typically start with who, what, where, when, why, how. And
Mhm.
so I recommend that people lead with open ended questions because you're going to get a better response. And what it does is really when you're talking to people, you want to come from this place of being really curious about them because people just
Mhm.
love talking about themselves. And when you can get people talking about themselves, it makes them feel good, right? And you
Mhm.
want people to feel good interacting with you. And they don't realize that because you've asked them questions about them, that's why they feel good, but they're associating those feel good feelings with you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so then they are like, wow, this person gets me. They're interested, they're asking questions. And so when you lead with open-ended questions in any situation, it typically creates a better conversation. It builds more trust because you're like, wow, this person's really interested. They're actually asking. They want to know. They're curious.
Yeah.
And so, in a sales situation, right? Going back to that, of course,
Mhm.
it helps just build more rapport to build a relationship. It helps people open up so that you can better serve them, find better products, less
Right.
buyer's remorse. And networking, it helps you really build a connection with someone that could lead somewhere. Even in a discussion, I will say,
Mhm.
like, if someone's arguing with you and you're like, whoa, 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 that's really interesting, tell me more why you feel that way. I mean, that's
Mm.
not quite an open-ended question, but you're not like defending yourself or you're not
Mhm.
asking yes or no question. Like, it completely changes
Yeah.
the interaction and the energy of it in a really
Yeah.
positive way.
Yeah. I think also a phrase that I'm latching on to lately is like, help me understand, because I think sometimes we're trying to get on the same page and we can't. So it's help me understand is not again, not being defensive, but saying like, I'm not where you're at today or at this exact moment. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. And I don't know, if somebody asks me that, it does open me up to answering the question of like where I'm coming from. And so that's a really, and you can do that in a sales environment, I imagine, and you can do it in a personal
Yeah.
conversation too. That's not maybe going the right way or whatnot. I think that's a really good tool. I love this idea that you're getting to know the other person. I think so often when we're thinking about building trust, we think it lands on us having integrity and doing what we say we're going to do. And that's all really important. But that person's not going to really probably be open to seeing all that until they feel, like you said, seen and heard, right? So I think that's a really important. What are some ways that you help people change their mindset around this? Because I know that we we all have different backgrounds, we're raised different. A lot of us weren't raised on open-ended questions. That's that's not a thing
Yeah.
that we talked about. And so yeah, how do you help people shift over time?
So I will say when it comes to open-ended questions, most people kind of dismiss it because it sounds really easy and it's like, "Oh yeah, I do that all the time." But it's actually quite harder than you realize, and it's the one
Mm-hmm.
thing I go back to over and over again. And even I catch myself like, "Whoa, I should have asked an open-ended question and I did not take that the right direction." And so how can I change that around? Especially when we're in like an emotional situation, we kind of want to fight for what we believe. And so we get
Mm-hmm.
defensive. And so we forget to start asking questions, and then you're not feeling heard. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so, kind of like what you were saying is, when you like turn it on someone and you're like, wow, tell me more. I'm really curious. I want to understand. They're like, wow, someone's giving me the opportunity to actually speak what I need to and try and work through that. And that
Mm-hmm.
just feels really good because I think that oftentimes in communication that we like get frustrated because we're not feeling heard or like it's
Mm-hmm.
not landing. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we think about that even in like a sales environment, right? Like how many times have you walked in a store and you feel like the associate doesn't get what you're looking for? They don't
Right.
know their product, they're not
Right.
able to help you, and so you buy the wrong thing or you leave and you go somewhere else that does hear you. And
Mm-hmm.
so taking that moment to be like, okay, let me understand why you're here. What is this for? Who are you buying it for? Like what are you hoping to get from this? And kind of just taking a second to assess it. It's more effective,
Yeah.
it's more efficient, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just you have to really like paint the picture, right? So if you're like in a sales situation, this is what I like to point out. Like I think we've all heard we go into a store and they go, "Is there anything I can help you with?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
Close-ended. And so
No.
the what does the customer
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
"No, I'm just looking." Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And so then the associate's like, "Okay, they're just looking. What do I say?" I'm gonna say, "Okay, great. Well, I'll be over here. If you have any questions, let me know."
Right.
So
Right.
what do? They go over to the counter and they're either tasking because they're like, "I'll just go back to what I was doing," and when they're ready, they'll come find me. They don't, hint.
Mm-mm. Mm-hmm.
There's a whole body language around that in sales psychology, or they follow because they're told to be available to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they, it doesn't like end
Mm-hmm.
well, right? Because what happens is either the customer finds one item that they want, and then the associate goes, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" And then they ring them up. So it's kind of like they're guessing what the customer actually needs, right?
Right.
You're
They have no
assuming,
idea at this point. Right. They
right?
have no
We don't
idea.
know. We didn't ask,
Why
right?
did you
And
walk
so,
in here? They don't even know why they walked in here. Were they bored?
no.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right, right. And so it's like a lot of assuming. And
Yeah.
actually, so that's a really great point is that when
Mm-hmm.
we don't actually use open-ended questions, we assume a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not a good look for anybody because
Mm-mm.
your assumptions are usually wrong in those
Mm-hmm.
situations because you really don't know. And then um if they do buy an item and they leave with it, it might not be the right one. Or maybe you didn't answer what questions they have about it, especially, fine jewelry, right? Like, how do you wear it? How do you take care of it when you leave? Like, what if something goes wrong? Like, those are really important things to ask and answer.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not
Mm-hmm.
utilizing it. But anyways, that's a whole conversation. The other flip side of that could be that they just leave. And then you're like, oh no, I didn't make a sale, right?
Right.
And then you don't know why. And then you're like, why don't I have more foot traffic in order
Mm-hmm.
to make more sales? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that when you really point out and show that and then practice that, that in itself is such a mindset shift. When you see
Mm.
how people open up to you and talk to you and give you the answers and how much easier and faster the
Yeah.
sales process is
I
when you
love that
start asking open-ended
practice.
questions.
Yeah, like I do agree. Like I think that if you the more you try it, and you might fumble, right? So like what are some ways that you we've got the closed-ended questions, but what are some open-ended questions that you can have as conversation starters and all that?
Well, if we're in a sales situation, I would say, what brings you in today? How familiar are you with our brand? When was the last time you came in? Because that's going to guide you as a salesperson. Have they been in before? Have they not been in before? If they have been in before, what have they bought? What made them come back? If they haven't been in before, it's a great opportunity to introduce what you do to
Yeah.
someone and have that conversation because
Mhm.
I'm going to guess that you have a really cool story
Mm,
and no
mhm.
one's going to know it if you're not sharing it. And that's a great way to share it. You could ask, who are you shopping for when they start picking things out? What made you choose this item? How are you planning to use it? And then
Hmm.
you just start getting more information. And that's where then upselling and cross selling becomes easier because you're like, oh, I know that they're using this for this. Well,
Yeah.
they're going to need this too. And I can make a stronger point on why they need that. And then you're serving
Yeah.
because you're thinking of things that they might have not thought of. Or
Yeah.
maybe they came in for X and you find out, well, Y is actually better. And so you can explain why that's better for them because
Oh, I love
customers
that.
just don't know your inventory like you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could picture this in, like you said, in networking too, right? Like, have you heard of, have you seen any of my stuff, or have you, whatever, and it helps you share your story. But I love the getting to know you piece too, because I think that we do want to talk about ourselves, don't we? It's just
Well,
so
yes, that's
natural.
where cold pitching, right? And
Yeah.
networking is that
Yeah.
we are quick to talk about ourselves.
We are, and we just do it all day long. I mean, my husband and I, we joke like in the kitchen, every story one of us shares, it ends up back to the other person's like stories, and it's so interesting how and you are in your own head. And so I love this idea of practice because it helps you kind of get out of your own space and really have to
Yeah.
intentionally think about the other person on the receiving end and not be on autopilot in your conversations, right? So I think that the conversations are really important. Body language is important. Is there anything else that you talk to your clients about in regards to improving trust and building relationships and all that?
So a good little trick to remember is that there's two things I would say.
Mm.
Aim to learn at least three things about the person. And
Ooh,
I
I
think when
love
you go
that.
into that, yeah, when you go
Yes.
into that, you're like, okay, what do I need to know? And
Yes.
then like even in like a networking situation talking about that, I never walk up to someone and I try not to walk up to someone and talk about myself first. Sometimes it just happens inevitably they ask you,
Right.
but
Right.
I always go into it and I'm like, tell me about what you do. Like, how did you get started? What made you do this?
Mhm, mhm.
What are you seeing in your industry? And I just ask them a bunch of questions because what naturally happens is they're going to ask them back. And if they
Yeah.
didn't, they were never interested, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that in those situations, just kind of piggybacking, I'll go back to your
Mm.
answer, but
Yeah.
we feel like a scarcity that we have to like talk about ourselves. And if we're not actively bringing it up, then we didn't do it. But
Mhm.
I promise you, there will always be an opportunity for you to talk about yourself, especially if you put the other person first. And
Love
so
that.
you have to remember that. And so aim to learn three things. And then the other thing I would tell my team because we greet around the counter because they were like, I want to greet behind the counter. It's a safe place and like the product is there. But I would say you need to ask three questions before you use the key because you can't just like, if you just like start showing product, it's like, do you like this? Do you like
Yeah.
that? I
Yeah.
don't know. And that's closed ended, right? And so
Yeah.
if you force yourself to ask three questions, that helps you guide that process easier. So you have a stronger case on why you're showing something. And
Yeah.
so, um, yeah. So hopefully
Yeah.
that kind of answers that
Yeah. I
question.
love it. So, and you just said something too that like got me thinking. So, like
Yeah.
you always have it. I love that line. Like you always have a chance to talk about yourself if you're talking about other people first.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I think that's so. I love that. Like, I'm gonna take that. But I also was thinking about breadcrumbing because you had said, like, I mean, so how do you help somebody with like, for lack of a better phrase, word vomit when somebody's
No, that
just
is the word. Yeah. Yeah.
right, right. So, how do you help somebody, I guess, pace themselves in presenting their product or presenting their story, or really even just starting a two-way conversation? How do you help people with that?
That is the term I use is word vomiting, and that
Oh,
happens
good.
all the time
Good.
because we get so excited. We're like, what do they need to know? I need to tell
Yes.
them everything, and then just everything comes out. And
Yes.
I have been there in networking events, and
Yep.
I'm like, okay, that was a lot of information, but that's okay. I'm
Yep.
listening. I hear you.
Yep.
Or in a sales thing, it just everything comes out, and it's because you're like, I don't know what they need to know. You don't have directions, so open-ended questions. If you're literally like, I
Mm,
don't know what to say, like ask a question and
love
answer that
that.
question and just that question or
Oh,
try to.
love that.
And like literally open-ended questions. I love them so much.
Yeah, I do too. I also think, the networking events has, Boss has really taught me. This has been a skill I've gained from it, and I'm so excited about it, is to also really, really be able to summarize my story and my pitch, for lack of a better
Yeah.
phrase,
Yeah.
But like my pitch in 30 seconds or less, like your elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that has really been key. And I actually think that that's not even about sales or networking, like just being able to like say what you do for a living in
Mhm.
a small space, and not have it be, like you said, too much for that other person to receive in. Because I know when we started out networking, I didn't have this down. So I would ramble for 3 minutes because I'm just thinking of all the things. So practicing that, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I had it typed out and practiced it because I was like, I need to be able to be concise for other people, not for myself, for the people receiving. And yeah, so anyways, so do you have any like
Yeah.
tips on elevator pitches, what to include in an elevator pitch?
So, first of all, and I've learned this firsthand too, I think that when we word vomit in an elevator pitch, it actually kind of communicates that we're not quite clear on what we do.
Yes.
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 And we don't realize it in the moment, right?
That's
Because you're like,
right.
I think I know what I'm doing,
That's
but
right.
you
Yeah.
don't. And so I think that the clearer you are, the easier it is to communicate
Yeah.
what you do. So I guess for me, like when you're thinking about open-ended questions, just kind of going back to that, and I think it relates, is that you really have to understand like what is your goal here? Like what are you trying to communicate? What is the most important thing that you need to get out of this? And so what I think about that in a sales situation, right? It's like, okay, well, what questions do I need to ask to get there? So if we're thinking about an elevator pitch, it's like what's really the most important thing that people need to know? It's probably
Yeah.
your title, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how you help people. And I think that's like the transformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you should be able, like, I said I'm a sales coach for luxury retail. I
Yeah.
help people get their sales performance up and their client experience, right? Like,
How you help them.
and if you want to know more, you're going to ask more. I don't need to go off about all the different offers that I do. Like, we're not at
Right.
that point. You just want to know what I do, right?
Yeah.
And so I think remembering that is like if people genuinely don't understand, they're going to ask more.
Yeah. Well, and it's been such a good practice for me. It's been a couple years now, but like now over time, you're absolutely right. I got excited when you said it because I have gained confidence in who I am. Like, and I just want to stress this point that it's not, you don't have to have a sales business. You don't have to be at a networking event. You should be confident in who you are and what you're doing in life. And so I would say action item for the audience is like, start creating your own, like, who are you in 15 seconds or 30
Yeah,
seconds or whatever, and see, it's hard when you first
it
do it.
is
It's been a
hard.
joke with some of the ladies and I, because I'm like, I think I got it, because it really is eye-opening. That's the thing. It's very challenging, and it really does kind of put it in your face that like, oh, maybe I don't actually have a lane that I'm choosing, right? I'm trying to do all the
Right.
things. I
Well, I
love
think like a real estate agent, someone goes, I sell houses, right? Like that's super straightforward. They're not over here like, here's all the different types of houses I do. And so, like,
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
and so it's
Mm-hmm.
not just real estate. That was just like the first thing that came to mind. But it is really hard when you're a solopreneur talking about what you do, especially
Mm-hmm.
something that may not be as common. And so
Mm-hmm.
people don't quite understand it, but you got to give people more credit. And
Mm-hmm.
people will ask questions. Even if they're closed ended, they'll still ask questions if they really
Mm-hmm.
are curious and want to know more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this. This has been such a good conversation. This is what I wanted. It's like, I want everyone to hear all of these things. And I think that we've said it several times, but I feel like it's important. Like this could be conversations with, your family or with
Mhm.
people, strangers you're meeting. It's a time and a place now, I think, for us to learn again how to have conversations, because we spent a lot of years in isolation. It's been a weird past few years, and I think people are starting to get back into the workplace. They're starting to make eye contact with people again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right, like,
Yeah.
and also as a consumer going into the store, I want to say that you're going to get a better experience if you are engaging with that sales associate. I mean, you are going to, I know that we were chatting before the thing, you had a story about going into Bare Minerals, right? You were talking about that and how that interchange, like you didn't really get what you wanted out of it because they weren't really asking you open-ended questions. And I just want to say it goes both ways, right? Like for us to
Yeah.
advocate for ourselves, and also if that person's asking a closed-ended question, you're in there for something, like, right? Like that's really important. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to talk about like just conversations are two ways. I think that that's really
Yes.
powerful, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so just to kind of tell everyone what the story was,
Yeah,
they
I
they were
love that.
closing their stores, and
Yeah.
so I went in there
Which
to
I'm
go see
sad.
what they had. I
Side note.
know, I know.
Yeah.
So they were doing half off. I was like, I'll buy foundation, all sales final. And it's
Yeah.
been years since I used their foundation. And so I asked the like associate, like, what color should I wear? Like, match me up.
You were
And
engaging.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to
Yeah.
get the information because when a
Yep.
consumer walks into a store, they expect that the sales associate is the expert at what they do,
Yep.
that they know their product.
Yep.
So of course they didn't color match me, which was on me. They kind of went like, "Do you remember?" Like I had mentioned, I'd used it before, and they said, "Do you remember what shade?" And I was kind of in between two. They sounded familiar, and they just went, "Oh well, let's do this one." And they just grabbed it, and I was like, "Okay, I trust their judgment. They work with the
Yep.
product. They know. They can see me." Like, and I
Yep.
get home, of course, it was a little dark. So it
Yep.
kind of worked a little bit more over the summer or like
Yep.
blending it a little bit more, but really like I should have gone for the other shade. And so then
Yep.
that's like disappointing because now I bought this product, I can't return it, I can't exchange
Yep.
it, they're gone.
Yep.
Like, and so it's kind of like I that's like the buyer's
Taking the
remorse because they
time,
didn't
right?
actually meet my need, right?
Yeah.
And they probably thought they did. And
Yeah.
so it's would I have gone back there again?
Yep.
Maybe I wouldn't go
Yep.
back to that associate again, right?
Yep.
Because I didn't feel like they actually helped. And it's like
Yeah.
disappointing then from like a company standpoint, like why doesn't your team know that? Like, is it the person? Are you not providing training for them?
Yep.
It could
Yep.
open up a whole can of worms there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
Well, and I do
yeah,
think too, like when I'm hearing that, I'm thinking, they're missing the mark. And it really comes back to the piece we talked about, which is the intention in the conversation. Like our goals should be when we're talking with the other person is to understand them so well that we are able to provide what they need. And so, asking more questions would have been the right thing to do. And I don't know, I thought it was a good story for just that how conversations can kind of end and it didn't really end with the right result. So yeah, it's a really good reminder.
well, and that's a good point too. I know we didn't go into this, but
Mhm.
to me, like the sales process, and this is such a different idea, but to me, the sales process really starts once it's closed because what comes
Mm,
afterwards actually influences brand perception and
mm,
consumer buying behaviors more. Because now I've left and I'm like, this wasn't the right shade. So it could
yeah,
have been the best experience ever.
yeah,
But because of that, I may be like, they didn't do their job,
right,
actually. Like, why didn't they tell me these things? And
right.
so then you're like, word of mouth starts spreading,
Yeah, you're
like
building a
negative,
case for not going back and yep.
right. And so
Mm-hmm.
now that I've told you, if I had still
Hmm.
been there, now you're going to walk in that store with that story in your head, or maybe
Yeah,
you won't even go back, depending
yeah,
on what actually happened.
right.
And so the after sales almost more important to me
Yeah.
on future sales.
Ooh, I love that. That's such a good
So, but
reminder.
anyway, so that's why there's your full circle moment of
Yeah,
why open-ended questions are so important. But even in conversation, I mean, if you were just
yeah.
having a debate with someone, like how you make them feel after the fact determines
Mm,
maybe how they interact with you in the future or if they
oh
do
my
at
gosh.
all, right?
Oh my
I
gosh, it's so
know
powerful.
like, yeah. So I know we talked about this a little bit earlier too, like mental health, right?
Yeah.
Like even just asking, like, I'm so sorry you're going through this experience. Can you tell me more, like, what this feels like for you? Is really
Mm-hmm.
like comforting. And that person, when they're in a crisis situation, is more likely to come back to you. But if you're
Mm,
like, oh, just go for a walk, you'll be fine,
mm,
right? They're
mm,
not going to feel as good coming back to you. So
mm,
again, there's how sales is really a life skill. It's not
mm.
just sales, right?
That's right. And that's so good. I mean, as a coach, I'm listening to that thinking, oh yeah, I have room for growth in
Mhm.
that, right? Because I'm a
We all
fixer.
do.
I'm a fixer.
Right. I mean, we all do. We
Yep.
all do. This
Yep.
is like an ongoing thing. This
For
is not a
sure.
one and done.
Yep. Absolutely. For the rest of our life, I think is what I'm told.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have some fun questions we're going to wrap up with. Before I do, though, I want you to share with everyone where they can find you and what you're able to offer them and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Where are you?
So I am pretty much on all the social media platforms. I'm
Perfect.
primarily on Instagram and LinkedIn. So definitely come find me there. Come say hi if you listened. I would love to hear from you
Mhm.
and what your experiences have been like. I primarily do workshops and consulting. So if you're local, I love to work with you in person, but it can also be done virtually, of course.
Mhm.
And yeah, so come
Yeah,
find me
I
there.
love it. We'll put it in all the
Oh,
show notes. So I love that.
yes.
Yes. Okay, so fun questions. What are you feeding your mind with right now?
So I know. So this is where the mental health conversation. So I think that COVID, if anything, has really brought out like understanding ourselves better
Right.
mentally.
Yeah,
And depression is a real thing.
it
And
is.
I have dealt with bipolar in my family. And so I actually just read a book about bipolar to just like better understand and depression and better understand it and how you can help people through that because it can
Mm,
get really lonely when you don't.
mm,
So actually
mm,
to me that was like really nourishing because again it goes back to like how can I have better conversations with people. And so I feel like I'm developing that skill a little bit more and
yeah.
how to like be more comforting and open for people. I also like love Taylor Swift. Who
Okay.
doesn't right now? Right? And Kelly
This is
Clarkson.
such a perfect answer, right?
I
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
Taylor Swift helps my mental health, right? And
she helps a lot
so
of people's.
it's funny because her albums are all so different. And
Yeah.
so it's like depending on your mood, right? It
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
like folklore is so different from Red or whatever. But I definitely am a Swiftie. I'm really sad I didn't get to go to her concert, but I
Mm.
hopefully will get that movie ticket. So
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so good.
um
It's interesting. Like back to the book you read on bipolar. I also think what I heard you say too is that you aren't just picking up personal development that's for you and what you're going through, but maybe for you to help understand what someone else is going through. And I think that's really cool. So yeah,
you.
that's
Yeah,
great.
it's you look back and you're like, I did not handle that right. Or
Yeah.
I like I have been in those situations and I didn't know how to ask for it, or why did that upset me so much and bother me? And so it's giving you like, oh my gosh, just like it's giving you it's giving you verbiage, right,
Yeah.
on like how to advocate for yourself
Yeah.
and how you can be more supportive for others because that's I think what our goal is. Like we all
Yeah.
just want to like serve and help others, but we don't always know how to do that right. And
Oh,
so
I love it.
even Taylor Swift helps sometimes in some of
That's
her
right.
lyrics, right?
That's right. So besides Taylor Swift, what brings you joy?
I love my dog. His name
Yeah.
is Bailey. He's 14, but you would never know. You would think he's
Mm.
like 7. He's just like this little energetic puppy, and I
Oh,
love him so much, and I'm
oh.
such a foodie. I love tacos. So if
Yeah.
you bring
Oh,
me
good.
tacos, they'll bring me joy.
Tacos bring me joy too. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
And I really like I love networking. I love meeting people and you learn so much about yourself through others and asking questions and learning about them and like just the opportunities that present itself. Like it truly brings me like so much joy even if you bring opportunity to someone and you're able to connect them to the right person.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you do to recharge then? Probably people probably bring you energy. I think it
Yes.
yeah, okay, same with me. Yeah.
I really do love music. I think
Mhm.
that, definitely the songs that we listen to, the lyrics can really feed into how we're feeling. So
Mhm.
obviously when we're sad, if we're listening to sad music, it can actually make it almost worse. So,
Mhm.
paying attention to what you're consuming is really important.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
I
love
mean,
that.
I love just sometimes sitting outside. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just need nature and just
Yeah.
slowing down and not being on your phone and like those moments with my dog, taking him for a walk or sitting outside.
Nature is so like whenever I always call it my instant mood booster because yeah, when I need to like reset, I just go for a walk for 5 minutes in and I'm like, oh yes, I just like remember my mind and body connection. What's a favorite piece of advice that you give or you've been given?
So here's my sales quote to kind of pull it all together. It's
Love
if
it.
people like you, they'll listen to you. But if they
Mm,
trust you, they'll do business with you. And so the goal is to get people to do business. And the focus should be how can I build trust? Because we don't, if people listen to you, they're not buying, they're not handing over their credit card. They're just, it's like a nicety, right? And so
yeah.
you want people to do business when you're in business. So
Oh
build
gosh,
trust.
so good. I love that. What's a favorite product that you can't live without?
So I like always love to have so speaking about appearance, I always love to have like nice like nails and I think that's really
Yes.
important. No chips, like just well done. And so I love Olive and June. I'm a
Oh.
huge clean beauty advocate and so
Mm.
they are a really clean nail polish brand. So I feel like
Ooh.
I always have their nail polish on me. And then because I said music,
Nice.
I just like truly live and love Spotify. Like
Yeah.
I
Oh
just
my gosh,
all my
I know.
different playlists and everything. Like
I
music is
know.
just I'm such a word person. That's probably what makes me like so good with sales because like that is my love language is words of affirmation. So to me, like music
Yeah.
really like tells you a lot about a person. And
Yeah.
so
It
Spotify
puts
is
a
that for me.
story together for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Mm. I love that. Those are great answers. Yay. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun. I knew it would be, and I'm so grateful that you would come on. I know you're busy, and I can't wait to see where this journey takes you. You've got so many nuggets and you're helping so many people, and it's just been really fun to get to know you. So thanks for being on.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And I can't wait to hear what you, as the listener, take from this and definitely let me know. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. I'm just so grateful that you would take the time to be here with me today. I hope that if there's anything that inspired you or got you excited, that you would share it to social media or send me a message with any input or feedback that you have. And just really appreciate the support and the encouragement that I get from you guys all the time. I will keep showing up, and I hope you keep listening.